If ever we needed a reminder of how unstable and how dangerous this world that we live in is, and how vulnerable our Caribbean region is, it is now with us, facing a multiplicity of threats. We don't need to look any further than the menacing vessels, military vessels from the United States across the Caribbean Sea, including what is reputed to be the world's largest warship. These are not times of pirates anymore. If there are conflicts and disputes that are in need of resolution, then the place that they need to be taken for such resolution is the United Nations organization. And the methodology that must be deployed for the resolution is one of negotiation and peaceful actions taken in order to ensure that we can settle disputes. Barbados has always been that place, and that is why we were the location for the opposition and government in Venezuela to sign the pact here a few years ago, because we are friends of all and satellites of none. And I say so comforted that this has been the position of every single government of the country since independence. The violent actions that this buildup has led to needs to be the subject of dialogue. And I have said before, almost every war in the world in history has been ended by dialogue. So let us have dialogue to prevent the war from starting rather than to stop it when it has started.
Tonight, a stark warning from South America is echoing across the Caribbean and the global wider Black diaspora. The Communist Party of Chile is sounding the alarm over what it describes as a dangerous escalation of U.S. military aggression in Latin America and the Caribbean waters. Actions, the party says, threaten sovereignty, civilian lives, and regional peace.
As we're creeping towards an additional conflict, which is not what the American people want. 25 years, trillions of dollars, multiple conflicts spread over dozens of countries. The American people are tired of regime change and nation building and endless conflict without defined ends and strategy, and that's exactly what this administration is doing. They appear to have learned nothing from the last 25 years. So they need to come to Congress, they need to brief us on what their plan is, what their goal and end state is here before we once again find ourselves in another endless conflict. Risk here to America is so much higher than even our other sanctions programs and our other conflicts, right? If America thinks that Iraq and Afghanistan ended poorly when those regimes collapsed, just wait to see what happens. If there is a collapse of a regime in a nation-state endeavor, nation-state building endeavor, that's within both boating distance to the United States.
For Caribbean nations with long memories of foreign intervention, this warning definitely hits close to home. We've been seeing boats in the Caribbean Sea, U.S. naval boats, and in a statement, the Communist Party of Chile called for a united front across Latin America and the Caribbean to defend sovereignty and territorial integrity. Principles, it says, are under direct threat. The organization reminded the world that Latin America and the Caribbean have been formally declared a zone of peace. Yet, according to the party, that declaration is being hollowed out by the U.S. naval operations that increasingly resemble warfare rather than law enforcement.
Let me say, I have heard a lot of statements out of Venezuela, some directed to me and our country. Well, let me say very clearly that our sovereignty is our sovereignty. And what we do in relation to our sovereignty is our business. Having said that, I want to make it very clear that our priority as a government and as a people is to ensure this region remains a zone of peace, to ensure that our region remains a zone of peace. Whilst our priority is to ensure that this region remains a zone of peace, we are also conscious of the impact of transnational crime, drug trafficking, and other forms of illicit activities and the impact it can have on our people, the region, and our economy here and the region. So we have made it very clear that together as a region,
This is 2025, and we have cause to be duly concerned. Because even as that is happening, one of the most dangerous hurricanes for the 2025 Atlantic season is bearing down on our brothers and sisters in the Northern Caribbean. Melissa, we are facing, my friends, an extremely dangerous and untenable situation in Southern Caribbean. And as a people with a tragic history of being subjected to centuries of big power, orchestrated genocide, terrorism, and warfare, and as a small state, we have invested tremendous time and energy and effort in establishing and maintaining our region as a zone of peace. Peace is critical to all that we do in this region. And now that peace is being threatened, we have to speak up. I believe that the time has come for us, therefore, to be able to ensure that we do not accept that any entity has the right to engage in extrajudicial killings of persons that they suspect of being involved in criminal activities. As I said, we stand for the rule of law. And we believe that if there is other intelligence available that would cause you to take action that is an immediate threat to you as a nation, then you have a duty to share it with us. But on the face of it, conflating law enforcement with military action is a dangerous step, as Kerry Simmons advocated a few weeks ago. We equally do not accept that any nation in our region or the Greater Caribbean should be the subject of an imposition upon them of any unilateral expression of force and violence by any third party or nation.
The party strongly condemned what it called illegal and unpunished attacks by the U.S. Navy on small civilian vessels, many of them operating in Caribbean and regional waters. These are not warships, these are not armed combatants. According to the statement, more than 100 people have already lost their lives in these operations. For Caribbean people, this raises urgent questions. Who decides which lives are expendable at sea? And who is held accountable when civilians are killed? Do they get a pass? Or do we need to call this to order? Across the Caribbean, fishing is not just an industry. It is literally survival. It is a livelihood for many. It is a part of some people's culture. The Communist Party of Chile warns that these U.S. naval actions blur the line between security operations and extrajudicial killings, placing poor working class and racialized communities at the greatest risk.
Mr. President, good afternoon, sir. Following up on the question there from Guyana Times, just yesterday the U.S. President announced another strike on suspected drug traffickers in the region, and there is growing international concern about the legality of these strikes, killing the suspected traffickers as against arresting them. Is that a concern you have right now?
We are continuously concerned about criminals using international waters or countries' exclusive economic zone in destroying economies, destroying countries, destroying people. For a matter of fact, we have raised an alert about the overflights over Guyana of suspected narco traffickers and drug planes, and their overflight over Guyana. And we have been talking to our partners and to help support us in terms of our air surveillance and tracking system, because we don't want our territory to be used. We don't want our land or sea to be used by any criminal network. So that is of concern to me, and we have a duty and a responsibility to make the necessary investment to secure our borders, to secure our people, and to secure this region, and also to contribute to every effort that will see our region remain a zone of peace.
The statement directly accuses U.S. President Donald Trump of using the so-called war on drugs as a cover for lethal force without publicly presenting evidence. In a powerful language, the party says Trump displays summary executions as war trophies, framing them as victories while avoiding scrutiny. This is not unfamiliar territory for Black and Caribbean communities. No. From the global war on drugs to counterterrorism campaigns, militarized policies have often landed hardest on black bodies at home and, of course, abroad. The party also raised deep concerns over the blockade of oil tankers entering and leaving Venezuela, warning that economic warfare is now being paired with military force. For Caribbean nations already navigating energy insecurity, inflation, and post-colonial dependency, these actions threaten to destabilize the entire region. The Communist Party of Chile argues this moment reflects a long-standing pattern, one where Latin America and the Caribbean are treated as strategic territory and resource zones rather than sovereign regions. That framing resonates powerfully in the Caribbean, where history tells a familiar story. From gunboat diplomacy to coups, embargoes, and covert operations, the region has repeatedly been shaped by foreign intervention, often justified as security, order, or stability. The party warns that today's actions may signal the return of that old logic, updated for the 21st century. Now, as we are witnessing this, all those memories are coming back, right? Adding to those fears, the statement points to recent remarks by the US President Donald Trump, in which he named Mexico and Colombia as possible locations for future US military operations. For many across the Black diaspora, this raises alarms about how quickly military campaigns can expand and how rarely global South communities are consulted when they do. The Communist Party of Chile is unequivocal in its conclusion. There is no acceptable reason or circumstance, the statement says, to justify a foreign military intervention in a country in the region, creating a new hotspot of conflict among those that already threaten humanity today. For Caribbean nations, this is not just about geopolitics. It's about fishermen and families, about sovereignty and survival, about whether the region's zone of peace will remain a principle or become a slogan ignored at sea. I guess we will just have to wait and see. As military pressure mounts and rhetoric escalates, the warning from Chile underscores a growing concern across the Caribbean and, of course, the Black diaspora, that history is not just repeating itself, but actually accelerating. And once again, it is the global South being asked to absorb the consequences. For the African Diaspora News Channel, I'm Whitney Mckoy. Until next time, stay informed, stay connected.